In June, the Obama administration decided to go along with the judge's decision to allow access to contraception called the morning after pill, or Plan B, to girls of any age without a prescription. Before this, they had advocated for some sort of age restrictions, where you at least had to see a pharmacist. But now, girls as young as 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, engaged in risky sexual behavior, or the victims of sexual exploitation, will be able to go into a pharmacy, and just like they can buy gum and a hair tie, they can now buy the morning after pill. This is as insane as it sounds. We know of the high rates of sexual exploitation of minors. Why would we remove another way that we could find out about this exploitation? Under the previous policy, when consequences of illegal or risky sexual behavior arose, at least there was a medical professional who could spot it and do something about it. Not anymore. In the name of sexual freedom, we're losing our minds. But we need to know that this is more than just bad policy. This reflects more than just a belief that teenagers are going to have sex and we just need to realize it and get on with it. What this reflects is more than a moral slip. It's what Rod Dreher called earlier this year in a very important article called Sex After Christianity. It's a cosmological shift. We're witnessing the results of a fundamental shift in our understanding of the human person and sexuality. Anyone who works with teenagers, young adults, or even preteens needs to understand that the landscape has shifted. The landscape upon which we're trying to train the next generation to develop healthy sexuality and healthy sexual habits has shifted, and we need to understand the characteristics. First characteristic is accessibility. It's no longer off limits for young people to access this stuff. In fact, we're teaching it in too many schools. They can find it on their smartphones. It's available to them on demand. Secondly, we need to understand that with this access comes early exposure. In fact, most of the pornography that internet users experience, they experience at a young age, not because they're looking for it, but because it is looking for them. I hear from parents all the time who come up and tell me about their 7, 8, 9-year-old kids who have been exposed to pornography, not because they chose to, but because it came to them in a pop-up, and they want to know, what do you do? The third characteristic is an ever-increasing privatization. We think no one belongs in this conversation but us. We say things like stay out of our bedroom and so on. And so the means by which many of us access sexual material has become smaller and smaller and smaller. You don't have to actually even face a grocery store clerk if you want to get pornography. In the privacy of your own home, you can hit a website, you can look at it on your smartphone, and no one needs to know. Good heavens, at Shippensburg University, they have Plan B in a vending machine. So a girl who got too drunk the night before can just go to the student center, put in her credit card, and get emergency contraception. No one needs to know. It used to be she would at least have to face a doctor. Now, no one knows. And this privatization actually increases the opportunity for exploitation. Fourth, we need to understand that all of this is being done in the context of delayed singleness and the trivialization of marriage. What used to be the goal of the teens and the 20s is to get married. Now people aren't getting married to the late 20s, if at all. And the marriage rate, of course, is plummeting while the cohabitation rate is increasing. And not to mention that marriage itself is understood completely differently. It used to be that marriage was seen as the institution that justified sexual behavior. But today, because sex is an all-consuming right, we think that anyone who wants to have sex and can have sex should also then be able to get married as well. And so marriage has become trivialized, and marriage is becoming less and less important in our culture. You put all of these things together and we realize we're not just dealing with a moral slip. We're dealing with a new cultural reality, a culture in which sexuality is broken. So what do? First, as parents, as youth pastors, as influencers of the next generation, we've got to limit access. Don't be afraid to say no. Geography has a lot to do with purity. Private connections to the internet and private rooms for teenage boys and girls is just flat out a bad idea. There's no other way of getting around it. Limit access to this stuff. Second, we should be sure that an early exposure does not equate to hostility or being judgmental. We need to understand that when a 6, 7, 8-year-old comes across pornography, they're not looking for it, it's looking for them. And if we react with a lot of anger, then we're confusing what is natural curiosity with sin. And we need to help them walk through this. This is very uncomfortable for me as the dad of 3 little girls. But just a few months ago, I was talking to the legendary Josh McDowell, and he said parents need to think to themselves, not what am I going to do if my kid sees pornography? It's what am I going to do when my kid sees pornography? I don't like that reality any more than you do, but it is a reality, and we need to make sure that early exposure doesn't lead to hostility. Third, we all need accountability. If we try to walk through this sexually broken culture alone, we will be compromised. Frankly, somebody needs to know what we're watching. Somebody needs to know where we've been on the internet. Somebody needs to know what we're doing when we travel. Somebody needs to know. It's an all-out assault on our purity and our morality. And this is just the church being the church, to keep each other accountable. And finally, we need to continue to foster a culture of grace, especially in Christian communities. Sometimes churches and Christian communities give the impression that the worst sin anyone can commit is a sexual sin, and once you do, you're off the reservation. We need to expect that the church can be a place where sexual healing can take place for sexually broken people. That's for homosexuality, for heterosexual brokenness, and all other kinds. Simply put, if we believe in God's grace, we need to extend it to this area as well as the others. At the Colson Center, we've been thinking a lot about this over the last couple years, and we've put together a whole group of resources, including a study on how to approach a sexually broken culture. Come to colsoncenter.org to learn more.